Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our SOTA Saturdays. This is the alumni version, alumni edition number 2. So we have some of our great alums from our different programs here to share their stories with us today. So my name is Matt Albritton. I'm the director of the School of the Arts. And I want to thank everybody for Zooming in and thank those that have watched the recording later. You can always, if you have any follow-up questions, you can always email me. All my information is on the NKU SOTA website. So welcome, everybody. Our SOTA Saturday Alumni Edition number 2 is what can't you do with an arts education is sort of the theme today. So we hear that question sometime from potential students and folks out there. Well, you know, what can you do with an arts education? I want to flip that question today, you know, and talk about what can't you do with an arts education. So in conversations that I've had since I started as SOTA director 3 years ago, conversations I've had with our alums, with our current students, with our amazing faculty and staff throughout SOTA, we've talked a lot about the expansiveness of an arts education. And in those conversations, and I started a podcast about this, the conversations have coalesced around a group of words that all start with the letter C. So I have collected 7 of them so far: creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, courage, confidence, and connection. And all of those things come with an arts education and serve our students and our alums well in an arts career and also in any career. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We have folks here who have taken surprising sort of left or right or meandering turns in their careers. And it's all a part of having a creative life and a creative career. You know, I've talked about at different venues, other kind of famous people out there who started with an arts education and have gone on to big things. Michael Eisner was a CEO of Disney for a long time, theater major. Steve Ells, you might not know his name, but I bet you know his food. He founded Chipotle. He was an art history major back in the day. Liz Ryan is a Fortune 500 senior vice president, CEO and founder of something called Human Workplace. She was a vocal performance major. And then one of my favorite examples is a woman by the name of Emily Brandwin. She was a theater major and recruited by the CIA. So she started as a disguise officer, which makes sense from a theater perspective, and later was a full-on spy. And now, predictably, she's gone on to become an improv comic, a public speaker, a consultant, freelance writer, all kind of things. So those are just a few examples. And so what I want to say today to current, future SOTA students that might be tuning into this recording is the message today is your degree is not limited. Your degree is not limiting. It's going to prepare you for a career in the arts. It's also going to give you the skills you need to pursue anything you want wherever your life takes you. So enough from me. Let's hear about some of our panelists today. And I'm just going to start one by one and with a short introduction and then let our alums kind of tell their story for a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next. So thank you guys for being here. And we're going to start with Hannah. Hannah Shirkey is here with us, graduated in 2017 with a Bachelor of Music Education in Voice, currently working at Xavier University as an assistant director in the Office of Undergraduate Admission. She lives in Over the Rhine with her partner, Brian, and their good dog, Finn. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. Like Matt said, I graduated from NKU in 2017 with a degree in music education. Fortunately, where my background with music came in has allowed me a lot of opportunities within my office at Xavier. I currently work also as the music and theater liaison, helping students get admitted to those programs too. So yeah, wouldn't trade my experience for anything, that's for sure.
So tell us, how did you connect graduating with a voice performance major? And then how did you find your way into your current role?
Yeah. So as I was going through my experience at NKU, I started to find a lot of things and passions that I didn't really know that I had, especially within my music education degree path, I found that I really love working with students. I love helping them kind of through navigating those difficult parts of their lives. And, I thought there might be another way for me to be able to pursue that outside of just being a teacher. I also got really lucky. I was able to get involved in a lot of other things on NKU's campus. I got to be an orientation leader, a tour guide, all of that kind of stuff. And when I was doing that, I met a lot of really great people and saw, oh, wow, this is a career path that I can do. Like I can do this as a job forever. So that is kind of what led me into undergraduate admission, and a lot of the skills that I gained while being a music education major. Of course, performance, like in my job, I have to be on all the time. I have to be ready to talk to a lot of different students and families and always have that nice smile on my face, even if I'm having just a terrible day. And a lot of skills like that I gained obviously through performance and, being on as a teacher in front of a classroom of students and things like that. So I gained a lot of really valuable skills through my arts degree that I was definitely able to carry over into other aspects of my job and career that I have now.
Fantastic. So, one of the things that we talk a lot with our current students, and especially students just coming in, is to really be active and engaged in your education. And it sounds like that was a big role for you, kind of finding those different opportunities across campus, even outside the major and outside your classes. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for myself, when I was an undergrad, it seemed like it was very easy to kind of get caught into a little bit of a bubble, more or less, like I'm a music student, so I'm just going to hang out with the music students. It seems like it's a little easy to, sit in our comfort zones like that. And I thought it was important to be able to go out and experience the rest of what NKU had to offer, because it really was a wonderful campus, had a lot of really great opportunities to, again, put yourself out there, get to meet new people and have those different kinds of experiences. So the biggest way that I did that, immediately I joined a sorority my first year at NKU. And that is really kind of what led me into all these other things. I learned about other clubs that were available on campus, and it prevented me from, being stuck in my comfort zone and allowed me to meet other people, have new experiences, join more clubs, and kind of give myself the confidence to put myself out there in other areas at NKU.
Fantastic. And last question. How do you continue using your love of singing and voice? So if you have a really stressed out student, do you pull out a nice lullaby and sing to them? Or your dog, does that help calm your dog?
Well, we definitely have a lot of songs that we've made up about our dog. I think she's probably tired of it at this point.
I love it.
Yeah. I do have the good fortune. I was doing a little bit of cantering at a church nearby. The nice thing about working at Xavier, it is a Catholic institution. So there's a lot of opportunity to participate in the masses that are there and sing and continue to be part of that. Like I said, one of the biggest things is that I am currently the music and theater liaison within Xavier. So I work with a lot of those students to help them know when their audition process is and, what their next steps are, other things like that. So I've been able to keep some of that connection, even as I'm going into a field that's a little bit different than what I anticipated myself being in. But I tell all my coworkers all the time that my music degree, I don't think anything could have prepared me better for life after college. I think it gave me a lot of skills and things to put on my resume that I don't think I would have gotten had I majored in something else or had I done anything differently. I think it really set up a nice path for me to be very successful once I graduated and entered into the working world, even though it wasn't the degree path that I originally thought I was going to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks, Hannah, for being here. And next, we'll go over to Elizabeth. Elizabeth Sorrell. Am I saying that right? Yes. Elizabeth Sorrell graduated with a BFA in playwriting in 2004. Currently the Vice President of Audience Engagement at the National Audubon Society. Been in New York City for 16 years before this, and now up in the Catskill Mountains of New York State. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So talk to us a little bit about your path from BFA in playwriting, and it seems like you spent quite some time in New York City, and now have moved on from that.
Yeah, so immediately after graduation, I moved up to New York City, actually with two other NKU graduates, Jamie Buckner and Devin Nix, who is now my husband and still my best friend to this day. So I also developed these great connections at NKU that have helped me settle in a new city where I didn't know anyone else. And my first job out of college, I worked for a small off-Broadway theater called the WP Theater, which is dedicated to increasing the gender diversity of playwrights, producers, and directors on and off Broadway. From there, I went on to, I discovered that I had a real passion and interest in marketing. So I went on to a small boutique marketing firm called the Carpel Group, which specializes in outreach to LGBTQ plus audiences. And so there I really honed my marketing and my PR skills. And eventually that brought me to the National Audubon Society, where I've always had a passion for the environment. Like ever since I was a little kid, my mom has photos of me like literally like hugging trees and climbing trees and singing with the birds. And so I was able to take all of that experience and skill set and find a home at an environmental nonprofit where I work on reaching and engaging new audiences on behalf of the environment every day.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. So how your playwriting, from playwriting BFA to marketing, were you mostly writing still?
Yeah. I always like to say that and I say this to my colleagues, I say this to new folks who join, that studying how people talk and getting a ton of experience in writing how people talk had a very natural transition into, for me, first press release copywriting, and then ultimately social media copywriting. And so, I came into Audubon when social media was still kind of fledgling for big organizations like that. And I really took this program and I went from a team of 1 to a team of 13. And that experience in studying and writing how people talk helped make our social media so much better than a lot of our peers. Because when you think about it, the best social media emulates speech. And so that was something that I had a ton of experience from NKU, and I think really made our social media presence really strong.
Fantastic. So, another thing that we talk about, certainly in the theater and dance program, is the fact that our students have a pretty broad degree, even a BFA focusing in playwriting. Students have to get on stage, right? They have to take some dance classes. They have to be, there's still some performance in there as well. I would imagine that experience as well would kind of play into marketing and pitching and working with a group and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like to say that there are some literal translations and then there are some less literal. And I can give a few examples, which is, pre-COVID, I did a lot of public speaking on behalf of Audubon, where I would travel. Like I spoke at South by Southwest to a room of 1,000 people on the stage next to Facebook.
Wow.
And when I prepared to start doing some of these public speaking opportunities, I would have colleagues that would say, well, you're such a natural public speaker. Like you seem really comfortable with this. And I would say, yeah, because as a playwright, they made me get on stage. And so I had to figure that out. I'm not a naturally extroverted person, believe it or not, but I developed those skills and that sort of confidence. I also have this great example that 5 years ago, we were creating a video about climate change and birds, which is a very complex issue to distill into like a 3.5-minute video. And we had hired an outside company to write the script, produce the video, and we got the script, and it was just really bad, like for lack of a more imaginative way to describe it. And my boss looked at me and said, well, you have a degree in playwriting. Why don't you try and write the script? And I did. And it ended up being much better. And so I actually then took on video production as part of my job description, because my boss saw, oh, hey, she gets storytelling. She gets how to create this content for external facing audiences. And to this day, a decent portion of my job is video production. You know, at the beginning of COVID, we launched a Zoom-based monthly show as well. And I've had the pleasure and experience of booking people like Melissa Villaseñor from Saturday Night Live, to the first scientist. It's a lovely woman named Dr. Catherine Sullivan, who's the first person to do a moonwalk and to go to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. So this sort of like of the human experience. And that again was something that I came up with that idea, but B, I was trusted to do it because I'd spent a couple years doing video production, which I don't think I would have been able to do without that experience at NKU.
Right. Yeah. It seems like you've continually mined that experience to kind of add on and shift that career and even within the career, how the different, duties that you're associated with. That is fantastic. Thanks for being here today.
It's a pleasure.
Next we'll go to Chris. So Chris Dooley was a BFA theater performance from 2010. He started his career in wine in Cincinnati. After working for some wine-focused restaurants here, he decided it was time to move on to the East Coast. Found himself in Boston. He worked as a sommelier. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Fantastic. I was going to default to the Kentucky pronunciation of sommelier. Sommelier, I got it. The restaurant where he worked was now I can't say that one.
I was going to say good luck. Yeah, L'Espalier in Boston. Yeah, in
Boston, fantastic. And recently he was the assistant wine director at 11 Madison Park in New York City, and holds the advanced certification with the Court of Master Sommeliers. This sounds like a very interesting pathway from theater performance to wine. Talk to us about that.
Sure, absolutely. So it's fairly common, at least kind of in these higher end restaurants that I've found myself in. And of course, working in theater, you're always kind of also in transient mode. So restaurants really fit in well with that, as you can kind of like pick in as you, okay, great, I'm in between shows. Let's pick up a serving gig and go with that. And so that's kind of what I was doing for a long time. And as I kind of got better and better at restaurants, I wanted to work at the nicer and nicer places. And it got to a point where, the nicer and nicer places aren't going to let you take a month off to do a show or what have you. So, I came to this kind of crossroads, and I had talked to a lot of people, and, I really enjoyed wine. And that was kind of one of those things that I didn't think, I definitely drank it in college, but definitely in a different medium, I would say. But it was one of those things that, like, the more I thought about it, the more it just made sense. And what I really loved about theater and, acting and all of that is really exploring a role and kind of learning about the world that character lives in, whether it's, time frame, politics, geography, economics, the whole kind of world. And you can really translate that into wine pretty easily, because great, I can show you this bottle of wine and be like, oh, it tastes like raspberries and cherries and vanilla and this, that, and the other. And it's like, that's not really that fun. But to really kind of truly understand the wine is to learn where the wine comes from, why it's made that way now, and where in that entire world, because there's politics involved, there's economics involved. There's definitely wine for the elite, but it was never really meant that way. It was just something for the proletariat, right? So having thought about it that way, and I was like, okay, great. So I can really just learn about, Burgundy. It's like, okay, great. And it's like, I have this whole wealth of information to learn. And it scratched the same itch that acting did, because I got to learn about all these different things, because I didn't really like to choose one thing that I wanted to learn. And that's kind of why I got into theater in the first place. It's like, because it did allow me to learn all these different things through storytelling. And so I also got to tell stories tableside, and, they weren't necessarily scripted, but being able to have that improvisational kind of flair and have these kind of quote unquote style points was really easy to make. And so when I made the move out to Boston, I worked there for a few years, kind of got my, learned the ropes, so to speak, and moved out to New York City with 11 Madison Park. And it was good timing because a year later we won Best Restaurant in the World in 2017. And
in the world. And
we won Best Service the year before. We just won. After I took over, I became the assistant wine director in 2019, middle of 2019. And last year we were honored with the best wine list in the world through World of Fine Wine. So it's been a wild journey, but I couldn't have done I wouldn't have done anything different because it was that love of learning about everything through the world of theater, and I was able to kind of translate that into restaurants.
So a couple of things come to mind. One is how has COVID impacted things? I mean, I know it's impacted everybody here, everyone in different ways.
Sure. Yeah. So something that I always thought of is like, well, everyone's got to eat. And so I figured restaurants were an incredibly safe industry to work in. Right. Yeah. And then, COVID happens. And so our restaurant's been closed since March 15th of last year and kind of with a moving target going forward. So not quite sure. So the last year has been all about, the P word, pivoting and trying to change and figure out what to do. And so I've done all sorts of different things. I actually took a consulting job in the Bahamas most recently. So I missed out on February.
Did you Zoom in, or did you actually get to go there in person?
No, I got to go there. I was there for 10 weeks, starting in January. So, yeah, so that was quite fun being able to do that and kind of basically rewrite this entire restaurant's wine list and kind of operational things. And I think that was something that I look back on it, and I dabbled in stage management for a little bit. I really liked kind of just being, I don't want to call it puppet master, but that's exactly what it is. It's like being the puppet master and just kind of figuring out how all the pieces fit together, making sure, having all the information and putting it all together, and kind of learning restaurant operations and those processes and systems definitely kind of stems from that. Is because it's like you have to be incredibly organized. You have to know all the ins and outs of kind of everything and what everyone's supposed to be doing and what they are doing and how to maneuver around that.
My other question is, at what point could you fairly clearly see that wine is a career? This could be a career for me.
Yeah. So I got in like right before the big like sommelier craze, I guess, which is like in 2011 or 12. There's a documentary that came out called Somm. And that really kind of kickstarted the whole thing. I was in Cincinnati at the time, and I had been working at a restaurant that is now closed. It's called La Poste Wine and Wine Room on Clifton. And and so it was one of those things. Is like, oh, I can actually do this for a living. And at first I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to get paid to drink. And while that's still reality, but like it was much more than that. And it was much more fulfilling than just like, oh, here's a way for me to make it work. So here's a way for me to just like make money and get by. It all became something like it is incredible passion and something that has been incredibly helpful in my life.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thank you.
And next up is Laura Bird Knight. Laura, welcome. So Laura graduated in 2004. Do I have that right?
I think that's right. It feels like forever ago.
With a BFA in printmaking from the visual arts program. She started out here in Cincinnati, actually on the Kentucky side, at a home decor online retailer and manufacturer for over a decade, and is now you might have to help me with this, a senior digital project manager leading projects for the post-production services practice at Born, BORN, on Commerce Cloud and Magento, yes. So
a lot of industry jargon there, Matt.
I know, right?
Give yourself some grace.
I kept wanting to say Magneto.
I know,
maybe
right?
I've watched too many superhero movies.
Yeah, autocorrect does it all the time for me.
Welcome, Laura. Talk to us about about your creative pathway here.
Absolutely. So I graduated in 2004, as you just said, with an printmaking emphasis. I also had an honors minor, and the combination of, going through the creative flow of getting a fine arts degree coupled with my honors minor really exposed me to all sorts of new ways of thinking. But really, what it really exposed me to, at least with printmaking, it's really all about the process. So I really learned how to process through looking at what my end result wanted to be, and then working backwards to get there. So that kind of kickstarted me thinking about, well, having a fine art degree, I didn't necessarily want to be what they call, the fine artist with the big A. I wasn't really interested in teaching. I like people, but I don't like people that much. But I knew that I liked process. I liked the idea of how to build repeatable steps to get the end result consistently over and over again. So about a month before I was graduating, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was working in restaurants. I'm like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. It just wasn't me. It was a great living, but I was tired a lot. And I was like, I really kind of want to clock in and clock out and then go live the rest of my life. And with restaurants, I couldn't do that. So what I ended up doing is I was working for an artist in New Richmond, Ohio as a printmaking assistant. And I had quit during my senior year with her because I wanted to focus on my art. And again, I was working in a restaurant. I was working with her. I was doing school. I was like, I need to figure out what's important here. And at the time, I focused at, graduating and having my proper senior exhibition or capstone project was really important. So I quit working as the artist assistant. But about a month before I was graduating, I reached out to her and said, hey, I'm graduating. I'm looking for a full-time job. And I kind of I like to call it using my magic wand. I spread my magic wand about and I said, I'd like to have retirement, health insurance, and if I could travel, that would be awesome too. Literally, I just painted the magic wand, and she's like, okay, that's interesting. She said, but a guy just contacted me. He's looking for somebody. They have a startup company, and they're looking for somebody who's creative and who understands process. And they're a manufacturing company of home decor. They're based in Dayton, Kentucky. I'm like, okay, send in my information. So I interviewed there, and after many months of going back and forth, because I was the first employee that they were going to hire that wasn't an owner. So they ended up hiring me, and I started there in July of 2004. I stayed there for about 14 and a half years, and I helped grow the business from top line. So we were only making like $5,000 or so in sales. And by the time I left, it was close to $50 million. And the company still exists in Covington, Kentucky. And we had about 50 employees when I left. So I helped develop processes for training, developing different departments within the organization. And in 2015, e-commerce is the way of the future. I helped establish that e-commerce department for them. And I fell in love with technology. What's more about process other than technology? It's literally it's straight up and down. You do this, you get that. So at that time, it was time for me to spread my wings elsewhere. And I went to work as an e-commerce project manager for a couple of agencies. I've worked for a company called Jagged Peak, which unfortunately is no longer. But I got to work with some of the biggest enterprise brands, e-commerce brands. I work with Fenty Beauty, Kat Von D Beauty. I've worked with Cole Haan Shoes. I've worked with Mitsubishi Heating, HVAC systems. I'm currently working with Nestle Gerber as their project manager for their website. So it's really been really interesting to expose me to all different ways of working and really keep me on my toes and be kind of like having to figure out a new business model and really get creative and say, well, this is your challenge. What if we did this to solve it? So it's really been exciting.
That is exciting, and just growing that that first business, getting in kind of at the ground level and seeing it flourish. So can you talk to us a little bit more? Because on the surface, it seems like art is over here and it's one thing, and business is over here and it's another thing. How do you connect the two? Where do you see them really working and fitting well together?
So I call myself a creative project manager. And people who have worked with project managers before, some project managers are very linear in their thinking. With the way I approach project management, it's creative. I like to think of, we don't have problems, we have challenges for which we have not yet found solutions. And there's not we just don't have the solution yet. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist out there. And I think that art has enabled me to lead some brainstorming sessions and really creatively think about, well, what if? Well, what if? We using that euphemism of, hey, I'm going to give you a magic wand. What do you want to see here? Just being able to have that conversation, it's all of a sudden it introduces introduces a cat into my conversation. He wanted my coffee. It introduces a level of play that people have forgotten. And I think art is about play. It's about creative play and thinking about the what if and unleashing the possibilities that might be within your piece of stone or your printmaking block or your blank canvas. And like, it's unlimited possibility. It's a challenge of the way you think. While I might not be actively pursuing creative pursuits on a daily basis, I do always incorporate creative thought into everything I do.
I love it. Absolutely. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you.
I want to follow up with everybody. And so just kind of unmute yourself and jump in as a thought might strike you. So I'm going to get back to all of those words that we've collected as really describing the expansive nature of an arts education, right? Creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, courage, confidence, and connection. And I want us to focus on two of those words, courage and confidence. Everybody here, if you think back to when you were a freshman, just starting out at NKU, thinking about all the possibilities and everything's exciting. If you could go back in time and ask that person, what do you think you're going to be after you graduate? Would your present job be on that list? Would it be in the top 10? Would it be in the top 20? Could you conceive of it? Such interesting pathways you've all taken. You got to have, it involves risk taking, right? To get out and see, like Laura was saying, seeing those possibilities and not only seeing them, but not being afraid to jump on them or to make them happen and create them. So that courage and confidence seems like, two ingredients that are vital to your successful, creative pathways here. Can you guys speak to that a little bit more?
I'll offer one thought, and I do some mentoring as part of my job with recent grads, and this is advice that I also give to them, which is, and I am going to say that I do think, especially for my generation, this is a little bit gendered, that I think is advice that's especially relevant for women and other gender minorities, which is, if you see a job and you think, oh, I don't have 100% of those qualifications, you should still apply, because there is no candidate that has 100% of the qualifications. And part of why my career got to where it is because I did apply for jobs that felt like, oh, I'm not qualified for that. That's so, they're going to want someone who's better than me. And they wanted me. So that's advice I give to recent grads and I'll offer here today. And I do think that requires digging deep inside of you for that confidence, but it will pay off in spades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So kind of piggybacking on that, it's also the idea of just like putting it out there. Like nobody's going to give you what you want unless they know what you want. And something that I always like to think about, and I tell my team is being perfectly imperfect and not being afraid of making mistakes. And it's like, okay, great. Like, yeah, the mistake happens. It's how you handle them. You can actually turn it into a positive that way. So that's something that I always tell people, and it's something that I definitely learned in school is, confidence and just like, making mistakes or getting rejected or whatever it might be is like, that's okay. That's actually a more important learning opportunity than if it just all got handed to you. And so being able to handle that and having the confidence that you are making the right decision, even though you may not have executed it in the right way, that's all right. It's like your heart is in the right place. And so that was something that was, I definitely track back to my life at NKU is like learning how to just kind of roll with the punches and like, the great improv, yes, and it's like, okay, you're always taking whatever's given and you're just going to roll with it. And so being able to have that kind of flexibility is really crucial.
I think my freshman year at NKU, I was probably the most vanilla person ever, just because I was so nervous coming in. Like it was a totally new experience, meeting all these different kinds of people from different places. And I was nervous to like rock the boat too much. Like I was scared to put myself out there and actually be my authentic self. And that didn't really come until my sophomore year. So the confidence that ended up developing over my freshman year was definitely very necessary. But if I were able to go back, I would just look at myself and say, like, just put yourself out there, be who you are. And if people don't like it, they're not the right people for you, because I start to think about like how much more I might have been able to accomplish had I just dived in head first in my freshman year. And it's interesting too. My mom actually used to always say to me, you're never going to end up in like a school. I don't see you ending up as a school teacher at all. You're going to end up working at NKU once you graduate and you'll stay in higher education. And I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. Like I'm going to be a music teacher. That's what's going to happen. And then here I am working in higher education. So
parents know, right?
Oh yeah.
So I like to think about my NKU experience, similar to what Chris was saying, is, not being able to fail, like being afraid to fail. We don't start to walk from crawling without falling down. It's having that courage to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again. And you might fall flat on your face again. And well, okay. Put a Band-Aid on your cheek and pick yourself up and keep on going. It's having the courage to try something new and always, at NKU, being able to be encouraged by my professors and instructors that, what if you did that? It might be a total abject failure, but being able to fail within the insular environment of NKU gave me the courage to go out after graduation to say, I'd never worked for a manufacturing company before. I had no idea really what that meant. But you know what? I'll try it out. If it doesn't work, okay, I'll figure something out. And being able to have that courage to just persevere and have that grit to have the strength to say, I've never done this before. So what? and try anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Try anyways, that word fail, I think it can be wrapped up in so much negativity and, report cards from the time when we were young, you don't want an F, it's a fail. But it is in the end our best teacher, right? Is failing something, and all it means is that what we first tried didn't work, right? We got to try something else, and bob and weave a little bit and get around it, and keep moving forward. So I love all of those stories, and absolutely agree. I mean, it's my experience as well. Starting with a degree in photography and just finding my way, and eventually after teaching administration, and not always 100% qualified for whatever job description out there, but knowing, that I could be creative and get it done. Are there questions from anyone else on the call that they would like to ask from our program heads or from our dean or some of our other zoomed in guests here that you would like to hear from our alumni?
I'm just so impressed by all of your ability to be in discomfort and be okay with that. I mean, it's really inspiring, being willing to be like, I'm uncomfortable and this is exactly where I should be. So it's really inspiring.
I have to put myself on camera just to say this because I don't know how to get your message to our students, how important that is. I have a very dear friend whose daughter's in theater and she's in the business world, extremely successful. And his daughter didn't go to NKU, but he absolutely touts the importance of the arts to her success in the business world. And I think a lot of times our students and their parents are afraid of going into the arts. If we could just bottle your messages and let the students hear it and importantly, the parents hear it, I think it would just go such a long way. I'm so impressed with how you guys internalize what you got from the arts. And I don't think you're just saying it today to be nice. It sounds like you internalize that skill set, confidence that you gained, and how you can see it apply in so many different ways. If we could ever just bring you into our careers courses, Matt, that's up to you. But gosh, with Zoom now, just 10 minutes, it's just transformative for them to be able to hear that. It is great to hear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dean McGill.
I'll just add one thing in response to that I meant to touch on before, which is I also often say that, so like, I don't have a 9 to 5, like I have a 9 to 5, but like, especially the social media aspect of things, like stuff happens all the time. And so, I have to sometimes do nights. I sometimes have to do stuff on the weekends. And I always say that I had an atypical college experience because I had a full course load and then I did theater at night. And so I also talk a lot about my work ethic and draw a direct line back to like having to do homework, having to like finish my course load, and then also either be on stage or be supporting a production at night. So anyway, I just wanted to add that.
What about, I'm going to go back to my C's again. What about collaboration? I think collaboration really threads through the arts. Getting on stage, even if it's a solo performance, there's an army of people that were involved to set that up. Even in the visual arts, which might seem a little bit more singular or solo focused, there's group critiques, there's collaborative projects and that kind of thing. Music, certainly, we're on stage with others and we have to listen to them and play and be sensitive to everything going on in this organism that is an orchestra. Can you speak to how that collaboration has played out in your creative pathways and in your careers?
For me, being a project manager, collaborating and the experience of the group critique was really important because sometimes those are really hard conversations, especially if everybody in the class thought your work, was just bad. for that's the nicest way I could say it. And being able to listen, even though it puts you in an uncomfortable position, or to even be able to have that empathy when you were delivering uncomfortable critique to one of your colleagues. That's an art that you have to learn. I mean, because we don't just come out of the womb knowing how to give people not so great news. So knowing how to be empathetic but still true to, your thought, and be able to hear other people when they're telling you things that you don't want to hear either. That collaboration of communication for me has really been a great testament to my success as a professional. not only in project management, but even, early in my career when I was creating designs that they were horrible. But my boss was like, yeah, Laura, this isn't sellable. Sorry. That was really hard to hear. But
sure.
then he'd say, but have you considered this? And we were able to change it and make it into a more of a sellable design. So for me, that collaboration has just been more of, okay, listening to people where they're at, being empathetic when I'm delivering it. And if the criticism of my work isn't exactly kind, just kind of swallowing that pride and being like, okay, yes, and.
Great, thanks.
A lot of my job, I really can't do without collaboration. Like I work with cross-campus partners essentially on a daily basis, whether that be other people in my office or our fabulous folks in financial aid or some of the faculty and professors on campus. I constantly have to talk to people that aren't necessarily within my group, even all the time, just so that we can all achieve the same common goal of bringing students into our university. And I think that was something that really helped me with a skill that I did not have at all. And that was asking for help. I hate to ask for help. I'm very much an independent person. If I could do everything myself, I totally would. But I think the process of learning, look, you can't do this all by yourself. You're going to need other people to kind of assist you along the way is something that I definitely picked up with an arts degree because, Matt, like you were saying, you constantly have to work with other people to achieve the same common goal that everyone has, whether that's to create a beautiful piece of music or to put on an amazing show or to bring in a great class of students, like whatever the larger end goal is, we need collaboration and we need to ask for help from other people. So I think that's a skill I've definitely improved upon. I was terrible at it when I first came into NKU. And now I think I ask for help all the time, knowing, like I said, that with help and with collaboration, we're all going to reach our end goal and have a better result than we would if I were just working on my own. Nobody is an island. So
I'll jump in here too, because something like working on a team in a restaurant, like, most recently, it's like we have 4 people take care of 7 tables. You have a captain, sommelier, server, and assistant server, 7 food runners, all of these things. And, you can't do it all on your own. You have to ask for help. And that was something that, I learned very quickly at NKU is that like everyone wants to be the best version of themselves. Right. Like at least I like to think so. And having that in mind is like trying to put everyone in the position to be that way is really important to do. And it's, having the opportunity to not only, act on stage, but also dabble in directing, which is very much that is like figuring out how to talk to people is incredibly important and something that I got to learn because you can give feedback or notes or what have you. And if it's not happening, it's like the person you're giving notes to wants to do good. And maybe it's a breakdown in communication on your own end. And so learning how to vocalize that and how to communicate that effectively was really important and something that I use all the time because you're right. People don't want to hear bad news, but they also want to know if they're doing it wrong. And so it's being able to massage it in the right way and be effective in your communication. That was something that I was able to learn in many different ways throughout my time at NKU.
Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts about collaboration? Not to put you on the spot, but.
No. So, as I alluded to before, I now manage, so there are 12 people on my team. And so I make 13. And I often say that, managing just like any other skill is, it's not something that it's not innate. You aren't to quote what, someone else just said, like, it's not one of the skills you're born with. So it is something that you have to work on and exercise that mental muscle, but it is something that I really enjoy. And I think something that was an easier skill for me to develop because of my experience specifically in the theater arts. and again, so my concentration was in playwriting, but I did have some experience with stage managing. I worked with Michael Hatton I was an assistant stage manager for a show he was doing once, actually. And that sort of like coordination, collaboration, stakeholder buy-in, like those are all skills that are really important in management. And so again, as I've said, sometimes my colleagues will say like, oh, you have such a natural aptitude for public speaking or managing. And I think a lot of those skill sets were built in their infancy at NKU.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Michael has something in the chat here. Can you talk about the societal idea that as artists, you will wind up living in your parents' basement or never be able to own a house or perhaps never even get married and have children? How have you been able to navigate the pressures of being successful in your various careers while also balancing work and life?
So success, there isn't one definition to it. I think you have to define it for yourself and figuring out what that is. I'll tell a quick story. When I was working a table at EMP, Early Madison Park, and this was a couple of years ago, and this is, sommeliers, all the things, like it's people knew what that was. And I remember taking care of a table, and it was a family of 6, and an older the mother was talking to me, and I was kind of telling her my story and all of this, and they asked me my age and all of that, and then she looks at me and she's like, "So you went to school for acting, and you work you were an actor for a little while, and now you work in restaurants. Like, what do your parents think?" And like, we're standing in the dining room, we were just named number 1 in the world. I am in charge of this 500 selection wine list with, $2 million in inventory. It's like, no, I think they're very proud of me, as it turns out. And, there's those societal ideas, but I think, you can't judge yourself by other people's standards, and kind of defining that for yourself is incredibly important. And so like I kind of shrugged it off, and the daughter kind of was like, "Mom, you can't say that. Like, that's really offensive." But it's something that I get all the time working in restaurants. And it's like, no. Like hospitality is a career. Like, this is something, there's a nobility in service. Like it's, it's almost a selfish act, like for me, because it's like, I want to make other people happy. I want to make them memories. And they may not remember me, but they're going to remember how they felt when they dined in that restaurant. And they might be like, "Oh, it was Chris Dooley," but they're going to be like, "Wow, that was a really great meal. Like they chose to spend their birthday, their anniversary, their this, that, and the other with us." And that was something that's like tough, because it's like, oh yeah, no, I just work in restaurants. It's like, no, there's more to it than that. And being able to provide that for people, an escape for even just a couple of hours to forget the outside world and have a wonderful time, is something special. And that's what kind of fills my gas tank, so to speak.
Absolutely. We need that more than ever, that escape and absolutely. Thank you.
I'll jump in on this one as well. And I want to echo something Chris said, that, success is a very ambiguous word. And I think it's really important for each person to figure out what they need to live a happy and fulfilling life. And something that I know that I need, or I decided I needed at some point, was financial security. I saw this great tweet the other day that was like, people who say money doesn't buy happiness have never been poor. It does buy security. And so understanding that is something that I've decided is important for me. So it's one of the ways that I'm defining success for myself. To Michael's point specifically, like, I own a home. I lived in a very expensive part of the world for most of my adult life. And I've also reached a point where I'm able to give back some, which is also something that was important for me. So I'm on the board of a small theater in Bushwick that's dedicated to producing new and emerging artists with a specific lens and mission for artists of color. And so, my parents are immensely proud of me. And again, that's also a family dynamic relationship. So I don't want to set, like, your relationship with your parents might be different. But my parents love saying, like, "Oh yeah, we get to go visit our daughter in New York, and we get to go to a theater where she's on the board." So I just want to specifically address Michael's question that even with the degree in theater, I've been able to accomplish what I consider a lot of success. And then I'm also going to add all the caveats of like, I'm also a white cis woman and I have a lot of privilege in this world. And so I just want to acknowledge that, I also walk through the world with privilege and that not everyone's story is going to be the same.
I got really lucky. My parents were more than supportive when I told them I want to get a music degree. But what I will say specifically about like my experience within, music, you can't be lazy and end up getting the degree. Like, I feel like a lot of the things that I learned while I was in school, I was in class every single day from 8:00 to 3:00. And then I went right after and worked like my part-time job until like 9:30 or 10 and still had like all my schoolworks, all my club meetings, like everything else. So not only did I just learn how to be a productive human, I learned really great time management skills. Like, I learned a lot of these things that are extremely important to any career path that you end up in, not just with music or theater or anything like that. Like, time management and the ability to have a good work ethic are transferable skills no matter where it is that you end up. So, with any degree within SOTA, you're going to be able to build those skills, and those are going to be things that are seen as valuable no matter where it is that you end up. And not for nothing, Elizabeth met her partner through SOTA. I met my partner technically through SOTA, because I met his sister and then I met him through SOTA. So, like, it'll all work out,
I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Laura, did you have anything to add for us?
Hannah, Elizabeth, and Chris really have covered, most of my thoughts. But, my mother cried when I said I was going to be a fine art major. She's an RN. She thought that I was never going to live on my own and I would be forever living with her and my dad. My dad, however, is a musician, and he's like, she'll find her way. And he had confidence in me. Not everybody has that one figurehead, saying, yep, you'll figure it out. So I think that's where, developing that community at SOTA is really important. And, hearing the stories of, all right, so I don't want to be a fine artist with the big A. I don't want to live in my parents' basement, or maybe I do, but really determining what does success look like for you and how you can be a productive member of your community and of your society, that in the way that you want to contribute. I think, success is so nebulous, and for me, success means having that financial stability. That's important to me. I was lucky enough to be able to be connecting and asking and waving my magic wand around in a way at the time that there was an opportunity. But I think, constantly uncovering those stones, looking for those opportunities to determine what that success looks like is really important. And really don't give up. Keep on looking, keep on turning over the stones, talking to people, developing that connection with your community, whether it's your family, extended family, friends, people you meet at school, your professors, even some of your professors' spouses. You just keep on talking and engaging, and figure out what success looks like. Success for me as a freshman was, I want to get through my 5 years of NKU. Success for me as a senior at NKU is, I need to find a job so I can move out of my parents' house. But success, it's ever evolving. So I guess it's nebulous, and being able to have the confidence and the ability to communicate clearly to those naysayers in society of, what do your parents think of you? Well, my parents are quite proud of me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. And I got to tell you, I am super proud of all of you guys, even though some of you I've just met today. I'm proud of what we do here in the School of the Arts. I'm proud of what we do at NKU. You guys have all found your way. Laura, Elizabeth, Hannah, and Chris. one of the things that I want us to do in SOTA is to have these kind of conversations to help us shake off all of those old stereotypes. They don't apply to an arts education and to the value of the visual and performing arts and society at large. And so I cannot thank you guys enough for being open and honest today, sharing your stories, contributing to this conversation, and helping us change that question, that we started with. Well, what can you do with a degree in the arts? No. That's the wrong question. The right question is, what can't you do with a degree in the arts? And you guys have answered that, and then some today. So I'm incredibly inspired by all of you guys. Thank you so much. And again, folks that might be listening, if you want to know a little bit more about the School of the Arts, hop onto our webpage. There's lots of great information. There's other recordings for other SOTA Saturdays that'll take you on virtual tours of our facilities. And you can always call or email me directly, and I'm happy to talk more about all the expansive benefits of an arts education. So thank you guys for today. I hope you have a great weekend. Get out and enjoy the weather as you find it out there. So thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.